Good evening. It's October 18th of 2016, and we're here for our regularly scheduled Brattleboro Selectboard meeting. The meeting was convened at 5:45, and we went into executive session to discuss labor relations agreements with employees, contracts, appointment of municipal officer or employee, and real estate lease negotiations. No action was taken following or during the executive session, and because we previously convened, we know that the meeting has been officially warned. I want to welcome everybody who's in attendance tonight. I want to welcome members of the press, BCTV operators, and our ASL interpreters. I also want to welcome everybody who's watching us on TV, whether live or recorded. The first item on tonight's agenda is to approve the minutes from October 4th, 2016. We have a motion to approve those minutes. Anybody on the board or anybody in attendance have any questions or comments or suggestions for changing those minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from October 4th, 2016, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. The next matter on tonight's agenda is chair's remarks. There's only one matter that I want to talk about tonight. We learned a week ago Sunday that James Banslaben had passed away. He was found deceased in his apartment that day. James was somebody I think who was very special to many of us. He was a somewhat troubled man who found his support and his community with many of us here at Town Hall on Main Street. I didn't know him that well, but he was always glad to see me, and I was always glad to see him. He just had the kindest and the gentlest heart, and anytime I would see him, he would greet me or at least finish up the conversation by saying, "Have a great Vermont day." And it's really a very substantial loss for all of us. It makes us all very, very sad. I know there's other board members who wanted to speak about James as well.
Yeah, I just want to say, I worked down at the Chamber of Commerce, or as James used to call us, Chamber of Congress. And I wasn't sure if that was good or bad. But, I saw James pretty much every day, multiple times a day. And he was an ambassador, I think, for our town. And he would bring visitors in. He would show visitors where they should go. No matter if you just rolled out of bed and wearing sweatpants, he always said, "Oh, you look good today." And I thought that's his definition of good. And I think he did. He was part of our community. And, as David said, he touched many lives, and he really touched my heart. And since everyone has heard about this, it's been very interesting to hear everybody's story. Everybody has a James story. And I think we're all going to remember our James stories. At least I am every single day when the chamber door doesn't open and he doesn't run in to talk about solar panels or hot tubs. So, I certainly won't forget James, and I'm really glad that he was part of our town.
I knew James in a different way. I didn't know him as well as some, but better than most in our community. I came in contact with James about 7 or 8 years ago, my first stint around the board, and he was around here working for BCTV. And after, he certainly would stop in my wife's store, and as he made his rounds up Main Street, when I first met him, I thought when we would be working on the street and he would say to someone, "Oh, you look great today, enjoy your Vermont day." I first thought it was shtick. And I says, God, somebody's going to pop this guy. You know, it didn't make any couples. It didn't make any difference. It was a mom walking down the street with her children. He'd say, oh, you're a wonderful mom. Enjoy your great day. And there would be a few people who would look at him with this odd look. But the majority of people, after a second, had this giant smile on their face that somebody said something kind to them and uplifted them for the moment. The flower program, I'm like Santa Claus. I get all the credit for it, but my wife and James are two of the best elves anybody could ask for. And in a couple of weeks, when we tear down the big top and go to put things away, James was instrumental in everything that happened with the flower program, helping me lift things up that certainly one person couldn't do. He was dependable. He never wanted any money. I offered to pay him. He was a true volunteer. And when he was on the street, he was always talking to everybody who walked by. It was unbelievable. And people would smile. And he made an impact on me that I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to know him. He has changed my life. And I think the people up here who came in contact with him every day, he changed their life too, because he was such a kind man. I never heard him swear, especially when things dropped on his fingers or his toes. I certainly use colorful language every now and then when that would happen to me. Never once did I hear him raise his voice. Never once did I hear him speak ill of anyone. And there were people on the street that would harass him, and he wouldn't speak ill about them. He would say, that guy over there, he bothers me. And that's all he would say. He never said anything. He said, this guy's giving me a hard time. So he really, truly loved everybody. He touched all of us in the downtown. The sad part about what I'm saying tonight is that the majority of my community never got to meet this wonderful man. If he was standing over there right now, he would be blushing red. He would be embarrassed that we were saying all these things about him, because that wasn't the person he was. He didn't look for accolades. He just did things that were natural to him, that made us all feel better about ourselves. And I hope that I carry through on the things that he did that made people feel better. I'm a better person for meeting James Banslaben, and I will miss him greatly. Rest in peace.
I miss him. I think that's the most I can say. That's the thing that struck me the most, is that I'm gonna miss him, and I do miss him. A friend of mine had to have, at one point, had brain cancer and had to have radiation, and she wasn't quite the same after that. And somebody said one time, well, she may not be playing with a full deck, but she's got some cards that other people don't have. And I think that's true of James. He had something that most people don't have, and I think Dick, you described it beautifully.
Well, it's a hard one to follow, but I'm going to miss James a lot. He was the only person. I'm not gonna say too much about James, but he's the only person that called me super genius. And so I will take that for the rest of my life, that there was only one. And you can say whatever you want about James, but he was a very intelligent man. To call me super genius, he was something else. But he absolutely will be sorely missed around town. So, Dick, that was a very nice send-off. So I think he would appreciate that.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David.
I don't believe there's any town manager's comments, so are there any select board comments or committee reports besides what we've just gone around the horn?
I missed the meeting the other night because I was at the bridge, so I couldn't do both.
Oh, I will say.
I will say.
Yes,
I was going to bring that
we
up.
had an opportunity to look at the I-91 bridge construction.
Unbelievable. Really.
It's really actually very good news in terms of what's expected. The center connector is supposed to be poured in November. The end connectors are supposed to be poured in early January. And there's supposed to be 2 lanes of northbound traffic on the new I-91 bridge over the West River on March 15th. And the entire realignment of the road is supposed to be completed with 4 lanes of traffic going 2 north and 2 south in mid-June. So we can look forward, unless something goes wrong, to very prompt completion of this project. And based upon what we saw, the pouring of the north part of the bridge is really almost complete. It's moved at breakneck pace over the course of the last 6 months. And we encourage everybody to watch what's going on up there.
It's an incredible project, and I have a video of Kate running around the inside of it. If anybody wants to see it, like a 2-year-old, it was amazing watching her. But it really is. It's the coolest bridge you'll ever. And I hope they have an open house, or let people go in to at least see a part of it, because you will not believe what it's like inside.
The first person who drove over the original I-91 bridge in a concrete truck has asked to be the last person to drive over the bridge before it's taken down.
Right.
And V-Trans is trying to make that accommodation.
And he asked to be the first one to drive over the new bridge, but we said, you're stretching it. You're stretching it, buddy. But it really is, if anybody gets a chance to see it. The state of Vermont has done a great job. PCL has done a wonderful job. It's a little bit behind, but once it's done, it's pretty spectacular.
Anything else for select board committee reports? So the next,
Yeah.
yes.
The Waste Management District Finance Committee and Board met again, and have sent 2 budgets around to the towns and select boards for consideration. One which includes the materials recycling facility, and one which does not. And we'll be talking about that in a week and a half, and about what form, if any, the change to the assessment process might take.
So we anticipate that being subject of public discussion by this select board sometime in November.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, the draft documents are available within the website.
Or February.
Anything else for comments, select board comments, committee reports?
March for sure. I promise March.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is public participation. It's a good opportunity for anybody who wants to speak to something that's not on the agenda to do so. Anybody?
Take a number.
All right then. So the next item on tonight's agenda is under unfinished business, abatement of interest and penalties for late utility bills. So Peter, if you could please bring us back up to speed on that topic from the 10-4 meeting and talk to us about the additional information we've received.
Sure. So you'll recall that this first came up 2 weeks ago tonight as a result of 6 appeals that had been filed that related to the late payment of utility bills, where the individuals who made those late payments represented that the delay this year of 30 days in the due date for the first quarterly tax payment had been confusing because they were used to paying their tax payments and their utility bills at the same time. We expressed some concern to you at that time that there were many additional similarly situated people, at least in terms of the timing of their payments, and that it was hard to determine which folks might have been confused and which folks might not have been confused, but that there were also a lot of accounts that had paid on time, despite the one-time change this year in the deadline for the first quarterly tax payment. In the course of your discussion, you acknowledged those considerations, and you also raised a question about the logistics of refunding a large amount of accounts if there was to be a decision to not just, if you decided to refund at all, and you didn't just refund for the 6 who appealed, but you made some attempt to include similarly situated people. The refund, if there are to be refunds, would be of the penalty and interest that these folks paid for having been made their payments after the August 15th due date. So what's before you is the additional information from the Treasurer's Office that indicates that there were 390 payments collected between August 15th and September 15th. And of those 390, they estimate 188 based on just the normal flow of payments through. They're able to identify that 188 of those 390 are from accounts that are routinely at least a little bit late. And that 37 additional ones were paid within 2 days, where especially if it comes in by mail during that first couple of days, it's an indication that it may actually have been paid on time. And so if you deduct the 188 and the 37, you have 166 people that were actually came in and were potentially the universe of people that were confused by the delay. The additional information also notes that the 390 accounts, if it were to apply to all of them, or the 166 if you decided to refund those, would have to each be adjusted by hand. There isn't a way to do this with a sort of master change to those accounts. And finally, it confirms that approximately 3,000 accounts in town were paid on time before the August 15th deadline. So staff continues to be concerned that we'd urge you not to simply refund the 6. I think the policy question before you is, was there substantial enough public confusion that it warrants identifying one of these other numbers and refunding the larger body of accounts, since those are similarly situated to the 6 who appealed, or given the fact that 3,000 accounts paid on time, is it appropriate simply to acknowledge that certain people were confused by this? We've already pledged that if there's ever another time, we don't expect there will be, but if there is ever another time when the 2 deadlines are separated for some administrative reason, that we would be explicitly clear, make sure that the notices related to the delay on the taxes are explicitly not also delaying the due date for the utility bills. That's the question before you.
Jan.
Although this is unfinished business, does the board want to convene as water and
Thank
sewer
you very much. I'm
commissioners?
sorry, I apologize. I guess we're ready for motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners.
Should not have unconvened, but I'll move to
All right,
convene.
we have motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Jan.
You're welcome.
Question. So looking at these numbers, 166 is the number of people who paid late and have otherwise have always paid on time. Is that accurate?
I think that's a reasonable way to describe it. It's not exactly the information that was presented. It's a little, one of the challenges here in trying to identify that greater universe of people to whom this refund might apply and try to be fair to everybody involved is, exactly where do you draw that line of who's in and who's out? And if it's not simply there was a deadline and some people didn't meet it.
Can I go next?
Well, one other point about that. The letters, and I looked at them again just to be sure, the letters all say that I've always paid on time. This time I didn't because of the confusion over the dates. And to me, I think, I guess I'd like to know how closely does 166 work? What I'm thinking is that if people have a history of always paying on time and they didn't this time because of a change in what was expected, what usually happened, that it's worthy of consideration for those people. If we can identify who those are, and then say if you want to file an appeal, you'll likely get it, or that we'll consider it. if your history of paying always on time is intact. I would like to propose that as a way to approach it, but we have to be able to identify who those people are in order to do it that way.
That's gonna be impossible.
It's a small nightmare.
Yeah.
Right. I have a concern about being able to distinguish who is actually prejudiced by confusion arising from the delay in the real estate tax payment date with any level of precision. I just don't know how we can do it. This number here is saying that accounts that are consistently late is 188, but that's based upon just general experience that we have.
Right.
And it's
It's not
not.
specific people that are
Well, I
always
mean,
late.
it doesn't sound like it is, and I mean, to be able to go through and identify all people who are, generally late and then say, well, you're not gonna get a refund, it's very arbitrary. I don't think that there's a principled way to do this. I don't think that the entire 390 that paid between 8/15 and 9/15 is entitled to the rebates, but I also don't think we can distinguish out a smaller subgroup that's entitled either. And those appeal letters that we got were really heartfelt, but one of the people who submitted one came in and said,
Didn't
well,
care, yeah.
I withdraw my appeal because, or I will withdraw my appeal because I understand that it, at the end, isn't a lot of money and it's gonna be a huge nightmare and 3,000 people paid on time. So, at this point, I think we've, from my perspective, vetted this fully, and I'm ready to vote on the
Except the
appeal
assistant
and deny
treasurer's
it. Yeah,
recommendation.
but that's where I'm at, everybody's gotta make their own decision, Dick, go ahead.
Well, my feeling here is that this is not an unsubstantial number of people that were late. I mean, if there was 20 or 25 people, but you're talking over 10% here. And you're right, how do you distinguish 188? I mean, if we're going to do this, I would hope that we would do it for the 390, and then the habitual people who are late, then so be it, they get a break. I'm not for refunding the money, but rather than giving a credit on their next bill, which would be due in February. I think that work is work. I'm not sure if that would be any easier. But this is a pretty substantial number for people. And, I'm grateful for the 3,000 people that paid on time. And like I said at the last meeting, I only paid by accident when I picked up my bill somehow, some way on the last day and said, oh, this is due. And I understand where people just go, okay, this is due with the tax bill. And, people take pride in not being late. Mr. Taberge certainly, who I certainly know, and said here that he's never missed a payment, never made a late payment, and he's actually embarrassed that he was even before us. And so the reality is, I was trying to think, John, if you were here, when we had this happen in my first stint, when we had we collected our taxes in September, that first payment, and I do believe that we collected the water payment at that time also. We didn't do the water payment in August. Now, my memory is a little rusty, but I thought we did both payments in September. My first question to you is, were you with us then, or was John here? And if so, do you recall how we did it?
I was not here at that time, and so I have no recollection of what happened then. I can do the research and find out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I just don't remember us doing 50-50, one now and one later. So I certainly, I'm going to make a motion that we credit the 390 late payments from August 15th to September 15th to be given on their February bill, and not a refund check.
We have a motion. Further comments? You don't have to if you don't want to.
No, I'm speaking about the whole thing. You know, I looked this over, and my feeling is if there were a lot more that had come in that were late, I may decide to. I just think this opens up a little bit of a Pandora's box and a little bit of a nightmare. I'm sorry for the people that were late, but I still don't think that this number really tells us how many people would have been late normally. You know, so if it's half of that, you know, so that's 5%. For me, it would have had to have been a much bigger number for me to consider it, because it's going to be a lot of legwork. It's going to be and again, there's 3,000 or probably a little bit over that paid on time. And it's not a matter of holding your hand and this isn't going to be a big black mark on their on their next credit report that they were late with their water bill. So I'm sure you take pride in never being late paying your payments, but I will vote against that. So that's just where I stand.
We can volunteer to write letters in support of people's credit reports if there's an
I just can't believe that there's going to be this big splash on their credit report that says, "Oh my God, they were late with their water." So,
Do we need to have more comment, or are we all set? Is there anybody who's in attendance who wants to speak to this? So there's two sets of matters that we're going to have to vote on. First, we had a motion from Mr. DeGray to credit on the next bill all the 390 for all the 390 people who paid their utility bills between August 16th and September 15th. And then we also formally have to vote on the appeals that were filed by the two people who filed appeals. There was six accounts total, but I think it was two people.
I think it was four
Four
people and
people.
6 accounts. Yep.
4 people, 6 accounts. So I think what we'll do is the first matter we have is appeals that have been filed by Phyllis Benet, Cynthia Pearson, Gerald DeBurge, and Jana Dave Ingalls, seeking to challenge penalties and interest on 6 accounts. And that's an appeal that's pending, asking us to rebate that amount of money. Is there any further discussion about that appeal? So a vote in favor, is it all clear? If you're voting in favor of the appeal, you'll be voting in favor of giving them their money back. And if you vote against their appeal, it'll be to leave the status quo as it is. All right? All those in favor of granting the appeal filed by those 6 people, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Anybody abstaining? I think that failed 1-4. All right, the appeal fails 1-4. Now we have a motion to refund or to credit to the 390 people who paid late between August 16th and September 15, 2016, penalties and interest on their utility bills. All those in favor of crediting those people the amount of the penalties and interest, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. Anybody abstaining? That also fails 1-4.
Doesn't work like town meeting when people yell and they go, oh, yeah.
I heard you trying, Dick, but I noticed it.
Dick, I don't want you to feel slighted either, because I never really agreed with Donna on a lot of things, and you're sitting in your seat, so it's kind of still balancing out.
I know how Custer felt.
So
I don't know what
I guess
to do.
we're ready for a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. All those in favor of adjourning as Water and Sewer Commissioners, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next matter on the unfinished business agenda is the police fire facilities update. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got a lot of ground to cover under this item tonight. We've had a few in a row that have been just factual updates and relatively quick. Tonight we've got two significant pieces of business to do, and we will get to those in a few moments with the guaranteed maximum price for the central fire station to proceed with construction and the construction plans to go out to bid with for the police station. First, I want to give an update about West Brattleboro Fire Station and address the question of the flashing light in West Brattleboro. So construction continues on schedule. Everything's going well at the West Brattleboro site. You've probably seen, if you've driven by in the last few days, that my report to you said it has begun to come up out of the ground. It has really come up out of the ground in earnest now.
It really has.
It's got a roof and it's getting closed up. And so that exterior work obviously is going to continue, but it really looks like a building now, and they're going to start moving into interior work. The next major element is the pouring of the slab for the apparatus bay, and there's prep work that has begun for that. So no new issues of any significance that need to be addressed here, and no really issues of any significance that we've had to address even administratively on the job. It's been very smooth sailing, lots of relatively minor things to address. One of the issues that did arise during the work that we're doing out at the West Brattleboro site is the necessity of relocating a utility pole and reconnecting the services, the various things that are served by that pole. And in that discussion, it raised the question of whether we should rewire the flashing yellow light that hangs above Western Avenue near South Street, kind of right there at the center of the village, or whether it would be more appropriate to simply remove that light rather than go to the trouble of relocating. I want to make clear at the outset of the conversation that it's not a financial matter. It would be the labor for this would be done by staff, and the part that relates to the actual wiring of the light. And the materials we're talking about are insignificant. So this is not a cost savings matter. It's a matter rather of just exercising good judgment in how we do the things that we do to try to protect the community, both the motoring public and bicyclists and pedestrians. And it is a concern to staff that this particular light represents that same spirit, the efforts that were being made in a far previous era, when we didn't have all the tools that we have now and hadn't taken all the measures that we've taken in this particular area out there with markings on the street, and there's a push button flashing crosswalk signal by Academy School, and the plans to put in at least one more in the same general vicinity out at Greenleaf Street, as well as other things that through that area in terms of the signage that's there, both lighted and otherwise. All of the more modern efforts that have been made and things that have been installed comply with what's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD, which is the book that sets forth the national standards for safety devices out in the transportation system. It's important to follow that. It's not a requirement that it be followed rigidly in every case, but it's important to follow it so that people know what signs and signals are, what the meaning of those signs and signals is, what's being intended to be conveyed to the public in terms of caution or actions that the public should be taking when traveling through an area. And that's why the industry works to create these standards. They change from time to time. People like the town, the V-Trans and others that are responsible for transportation systems try to follow that. This flashing light, because it is just continuously flashing all the time, doesn't actually convey a message. There was a time when a light like that, particularly at an intersection, meant caution, meant to slow down as you go through. Now there are other facilities usually that are installed for those kinds of purposes if you're not going to have a fully functioning signalized intersection. And usually they would come with some kind of signage warning of, say, a school or a congested area or something else related to the warning that's being conveyed to drivers as they come through. And so the fact that it doesn't meet the modern standards, the fact that there's other actions that have been taken in the nearby area around this light to protect the public, both the driving public and the pedestrians and bicyclists, and the fact that research suggests that a light like this that just stands alone flashing continuously, that doesn't indicate a particular message, doesn't materially add to the safety of the public, caused us to feel like it was appropriate to remove the light rather than to rewire it and maintain it at that location. We did take this question to the Traffic Safety Committee on the way to you because we recognize that it's been out there for a good long time, and it's a change in the town, how the town addresses public safety and pedestrian safety at that location. We thought it was appropriate for them to review it on the way to you. There was no vote at the Traffic Safety Committee. There was a healthy discussion around it, and the consensus, not unanimous, but majority consensus there was that it was appropriate to remove the light. So we're before you tonight to recommend that it be removed. We do acknowledge, we did to the committee, and we do to you, that there may be people, individual people in the community who see value in the light. We respect that. For the reasons that we've identified, we think that the objective decision here in terms of the broader public interests would be that it's appropriate to remove it.
Anybody on the board have any questions or comments?
I do.
Please.
I'm one of those people you just described. I'll start with, I think, of the important things first. First, that's a very busy area. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a fire station there. And at night, there's no way to know there's a fire station there except for that, or if there's any reason to be cautious going through it because of that light. Although there usually is plenty of activity when the fire station is in action. Nonetheless, it's a very busy area. Becoming part of the landscape is true for me, but it's not true for all the visitors that drive through there. And I'm not sure what percentage of people that go through there are visitors, but on a given, during any given week of the year, that's one of the most traveled sections of State Highway in Vermont. It's very busy, and a lot of people have no idea what's there. Right now, there are the two lights. There'll be two more at Greenleaf, the blinking crosswalk walk lights. That one would be almost in the middle of those. And rather than take it out, one of the things I noticed since the yellow lights came in is I haven't seen the radar display and speed recording device that the school district and the town split the cost of. So I'll inquire about that when I have my other hat on. But I would rather see all the lights and the radar there because it's a school crossing. And I don't know how many parents, and when my child was there, and before and since, I don't know how many parents have said that when they're out there crossing the street, they're just waiting for the bump of the car hitting some kid. And it's been very nerve-wracking for families for a long time. And I think any device that helps with that process is valuable. And then on the less sort of meaningful part, it's really a great old school kind of flashing light. It's red on the other side. It's red on the coming down the hillside. And we spent, I don't know, I'm not going to ask how much because I don't want to talk about it again, but we spent a lot of money putting a cupola on top of the fire department so that it would be kind of fit nicely into that old town center setting. And I think I'm thinking yellow light fits nicely in there as well.
I had to drive out there the other day just to remember where it was, because and I go out
And it
to
hangs
West.
low. It
Yes,
sags.
I
It's
go
really
out to
got
West
really
Brattleboro a lot,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't remember exactly where it was
Yeah.
because it's in my conscious. It's just always there.
And there are so many signs. From the
I
interstate out
do
to
agree
the
with you though
diner.
on the fact that a lot of tourists who don't come through that area, will see it and go, oh, well, there must be something, just because we as locals. But we also know that the fire station's there and that there's a school right down the road. So hopefully we're cognizant of that, but, I can go either way on this one. So I see your concerns and I'm glad you brought them up. Yeah.
Anybody else on the board have a position that they want to articulate?
Unless somebody can convince me otherwise, it's not hurting anyone and it's not going to cost us any money to put it back up. So I'm inclined to put it back up. But someone can convince me otherwise.
Anybody else on the board? If it was gonna be removed, one suggestion that I had, because there's a crosswalk right there, and it's a very long crosswalk, would be to replace it with another one of those flashing
Right.
pedestrian activated lights. But that's not something that's gonna happen anytime soon. But to follow up on Dick's suggestion, what was it, 6 weeks ago, about pedestrian activated lights, it may be that installing them serially across some of the entrances into town may, just by the accumulation of those lights, make people more aware as they're approaching crosswalks as a whole. And so if we were going to take out the light, I would say to replace it with a pedestrian activated light. But that's not something that can happen right away. Anybody who's in attendance want to speak to this? I know Ms. Bosworth walked in.
Yes, they would like to buy the light from us.
No, I want the light.
I'm Nancy Barber of West Brattleboro, and my opinion is that the flashing light is really largely ignored. People still do race through that section of town when the radar sign is not tracking speed. Given the discussion that you've had here, I'm not sure. I was originally thinking, well, it probably would be a good thing to not redo the wiring. On the other hand, it is a very busy intersection. And I think that all the help or all the prompts that can be brought to bear on slowing traffic down through that particular section should be continued. I think that the caution part of that flasher is not so commonly observed these days as it was in the past when we all knew that yellow meant caution. So that's my comment. I do have a question though. Is there a plan to place a light there in front of the new fire station so that when the engines need to get out, fire engines need to get out, that traffic will be stopped? I'm curious to know about that.
There is not
There
a
is
plan
not.
to actually
Oh, okay.
put signals out there.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you. Ms. Bosworth?
Actually, that's an interesting comment.
Yeah.
Well, the sirens will be going off and, you know.
Yeah, Michael Bosworth, and I don't have too much to add. It's just I can understand the logic of why the flashing yellow might not mean a lot to people anymore. But again, my question would be, what would replace it? And David, you brought that up, a suggestion of what might replace it, because it is a dangerous place to cross, and it is not the same crossing as the Academy School crossing. It's not the same crossing as the Greenleaf Street crossing. So I would hate to have it become a less safe crossing than it is today. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. John?
Is it possible, here we go again. Is it possible to absorb one of those, the ones that, like, we have down by, the flashing lights that are...
For the crosswalk, the push button.
Yeah, the push button crosswalks, to absorb it into the police fire project and get one going right away instead of having to wait? I mean, I remember the price of those were...
Can I ask a question? though?
Sure.
Do we know that that's what needs to be there? I mean, that's my question too.
We haven't consulted about that. I
Right.
mentioned that to Peter today as an alternative.
Okay.
Because the lack of a consensus of traffic safety was me. I was the one that said, yeah, but that yellow light makes me slow down when I get to the center of West
It
Brattleboro.
does.
May I address the question? I think also, at the very least, we'd want to consult with the bond counsel and make sure it's a small expense. It wouldn't be that big a deal, but I want to be careful that we spend
That we don't...
the bond funds only on the projects, and I'm not sure whether this would stretch far enough
Well, Nancy
the way for the
brings up-
project to not count.
But Nancy does bring up a good point that, usually, and I don't know if that's true throughout the country, whenever I see a fire truck backing out of there's usually some kind of a light there
Right.
indicating that there's a fire truck backing up, or
In case you didn't notice.
in case you didn't notice, but it's just.
Refresh my memory, is that the widest crosswalk that we have in the community at that
It's
point?
pretty wide.
And so I guess my question would be is why don't we eliminate it and move, there is a crosswalk, I believe, just north of that. There certainly is south of that. That's probably the most dangerous crosswalk, I mean, in terms of traffic moving through at a much higher rate of speed. And I've often wondered, why do we even have that crosswalk there? I mean, you're almost playing chicken, even though you're in the crosswalk. Just because you're in the crosswalk doesn't mean that people are stopping. So I would maybe ask that traffic safety entertain moving that crosswalk to a area where, if there isn't one just north where I believe there is, then moving that crosswalk up there, because I do believe that there is one between that one and the school by the church. Is there one there also?
I think there is.
Yeah, there too.
So, maybe we should consider not having that crosswalk right at that point.
I think the reason why that one was there, and maybe the West Brattleboro people can tell me, is that there used to be a store there.
Stockwell store.
Stockwell store was there, so anybody coming down off of South Street or that were walking or
Yeah, but
could
if you-
easily get over.
If you went to the north of the park, you could still cross it.
Yeah.
That's, what is it, South Street?
Bonneville.
Bonnie. Yeah,
So it's up further than that. I mean,
Is it up by the church? Or is it-
No,
Yeah.
no. Is that the furthest
No, the
one?
red church, the other church.
So,
Yes,
I
Ms.
don't know.
Barber.
Yes, Nancy knows.
help us out.
There's the crosswalk at Academy School.
Right?
There's the crosswalk at the old Stockwell building.
Yeah,
There's a crosswalk at the Baptist Church.
at the Baptist church,
Right.
that's right.
And there's a crosswalk at
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
And then there's another one up by the bank or the old, isn't there one by Jewett Plumbing?
No,
No?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
There's one more up there.
All right, I want to deal with the procedural issue,
Well-
which is, go ahead, you finish.
Well, it's just that the one that you're talking about eliminating is an access to the bus stop. And there are people who
right.
would need that kind of assistance who are mobility challenged perhaps, or very young or whatever.
That's right, the bus stop is there.
So this is an energetic, interesting discussion that I wish could go on all night. But really, the question at hand is whether we should eliminate the flashing yellow light, and then whether other things will be taken up by traffic safety. That's something that we'll deal with later. Are there further comments right now about removing or continuing a flashing yellow light?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please.
I'm now confused. Is that light there because of the crosswalk, or is the light there to slow cars down in general?
I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
think
sort of
that
confused.
anybody can answer that
Okay.
question.
I would agree with
The
that.
light is there.
And it has been for as long as most any of us can
Okay.
remember. Yeah.
And it works.
Well, some
And
say
it does
some
flash.
say it doesn't.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to not replace the flashing yellow light?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
No, wait.
Well,
To not replace it?
That's what they want.
Oh, to not replace
Yeah.
it.
to not replace it. So I want to know if there's a motion to discontinue the flashing yellow light.
Yes, there is a motion to discontinue the flashing yellow
All right.
light in West Brattleboro.
Is that, you're making that motion?
I am making that
All right,
motion.
John Allen moves to discontinue the flashing yellow light in West Brattleboro Center. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of discontinuing the flashing yellow light in West Brattleboro, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Nay.
There you
Anybody
go.
abstaining?
We are
That
polarized
fails
tonight.
1-4.
I just wanted to
We're
move it
defeating
along.
motions left and right. God, that's fun. We never do that.
And you don't need to take any further action.
No, not today.
No, not on that one.
Thanks for that suggestion.
That was just to move things along, folks,
All right.
okay?
So,
I was just gonna launch in on the
What are the next
long-term
two?
plan
So-
for the first phase of the West Brattleboro project.
so what's the next item under police and fire?
So the two remaining action items related to police and fire are the guaranteed maximum price for Central and the construction plans for the police department. And to take them in that order, on guaranteed maximum price, Steve Horton is here. He can speak to the details that are in the materials that you've received in your notebooks. If you have specific questions, overall, I can tell you that the $5,120,170 proposed guaranteed maximum price for this construction project comes in over $100,000 below, about $106,000 below the estimated cost of the construction for this project from the work we did that generated the estimates that were used for the actions that you took in the spring at town meeting, took to authorize the project. So we're pleased with this number. It's didn't start out this low. There's been a lot of hard work done by Steve and others working together with the contractor to work with the contractor, work with the subs, get it down to where it is at this time. We think it's a solid, awardable number. And in the review that the Police Fire Facilities Building Committee gave to this matter back on the 12th last week, they had a good long discussion about this, asked a lot of questions about it, and then unanimously recommended that you approve the guaranteed maximum price.
So, a question. Because the bond is approved as a holistic number,
Yes.
and we see here that the fire station is $106,000 under what was proposed for the budget. Does that mean that we would be able to use that money on either Station 2
Yes.
or the police station if we needed to?
Absolutely. So there's an overall contingency for the
Right.
three projects together. And this would add $106,000 to that contingency. There's approaching but not quite $1 million in that contingency. It's important. We've been able so far with the good price we got for West Brattleboro and the fact that we haven't had a lot of increases to that. A lot of minor things, nothing very significant out there, thank goodness. And now with this price coming in where it is at Central, if we can continue that trend and preserve much of that contingency, that'll be really important, not just because it's good practice to bring in a project with some savings, but specifically because in the process of taking the projects as they had been previously envisioned and squeezing them down to their essence so that we could have the most affordable possible number to take to town meeting for approval, there were some things that are highly desirable, not absolutely immediately essential, but very highly desirable. So an example to that is emergency generators for these buildings. These are 24-hour occupancy, public safety facilities. They ought to have emergency generators, but we eliminated the emergency generators from the basic program when we were paring this back to be the essential program to build the projects. If we don't have enough money at the end of the project to buy the emergency generators, then we won't. We'll function without them for a while. We'll find a way to add them at a future date. But those are the kinds of things, not frivolous add-ons, but some pretty essential stuff that we would be able to use the contingency for next summer, next fall, at the end of the job, if there is still contingency remaining when all three projects have been built.
Well, I guess I wouldn't buy a car without any tires. Why wouldn't why wouldn't we have the generators as an essential part of the building, of the scope of the project, when they're essential to the services of the two organizations that they serve? I mean, how do you just, how do you do that and say, we're providing, this is a one-shot deal?
Right.
And-
Well,
And if these are so critical, which we all believe that they are, why were they not included in
I think they're important. There were other things that were important also that were sacrificed. I mean, there was a time when there was another story above the apparatus bay at Central that would have served some very useful functions for the community and the fire department. That was a cost that we eliminated from the project in order to try to get it again down to its essence so that the facilities were brought up to modern standards. And as you say, you know, the engine and the tires and all the things that make a car function and go down the road. But I guess, you know, to play that metaphor out, we viewed the generators as a spare tire. So we're driving down the road without the spare tire, and if there's a flat, we're going to have to call somebody to bring us a spare. That's not a good situation. We think there ought to be emergency generators at these facilities, but we think that they're not so part of the essence of the buildings that they had to be included in the first go. It would be really good if we had enough contingency at the end of the job to actually supply an emergency generator at each site.
What, might I ask if anybody here, Mr. Horton, what the cost would be for those?
Good evening. One other point I wanted to make about the generators before the cost is that at the time, just before the bond vote, leading up to the last bond vote, we also thought there was probably grant money available for those generators. So that was our logic to not include that. Since that time, that money has become very scarce. So we're now faced with this reality.
And one additional thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure we answer this thought because it's an important part of understanding how far we cut and where we stopped, because I think it's really important that we were really mindful of not wanting to cut so far that we ended up penny wise and pound foolish and having to spend a lot of money to catch up to needs afterwards. So each of the buildings is designed so that it is ready to simply plug a generator in. So the connections will be created in such a way that a generator that's purchased and installed at the site, whether that's at the end of this job or whether it's a year or two from now, will be able to be easily connected at low cost. You won't have to do wiring inside the building to accommodate the receiving that emergency power.
So,
Costs for all three buildings would be approximately $200,000.
thank you.
Steve, before you sit down, if that's okay. If you could please provide to us and to everybody who's watching just an overview of the way in which the guaranteed maximum price that's presented to us was arrived at, so that people understand what it is we're voting on and what are some of the highlights that you think we should be aware of and that the public should be aware of as we consider this potential award.
Yes. To go back a little bit, just so that the public is aware, there has been a series of design meetings, design documents created for all of the three buildings. Both West B and Central, of course, the designs are completed. And for Central in particular, we spent approximately 5 months designing the addition to that building and the renovations through Ray and John, who are both here this evening. And in that process, you and the public had an opportunity to provide feedback to what that building would ultimately look like. We involved staff, the chief, and others from the departments regularly in weekly meetings to be engaged in the design process and prioritize, as Peter has mentioned, the real needs for the project, the highest priorities. We do have actually two lists, highest second priority and highest third priority of items that we would love to add if money allows us. But the essence of the GMP that you have before you is a culmination of hundreds of people's effort, yours included, giving us feedback on what that building ultimately will look like. The construction manager, which is DEW McMillan, takes that information and competitively bids that to subcontractors. And that went out about 6 weeks ago. We had a great response from subcontractors. And just a bit of statistics, roughly 85% of these projects are subcontracted, so that the high majority of the projects are competitively bid. The remaining 15% is management, administration, and DEW labor to get the project done. Those bid results came back. We had some local involvement, not as much as we had at West B. And the reality of the differences between the two buildings is that West B is a wood frame building. It's smaller in size and stature and cost, and a lot more local subs were interested in that size of project. There's only a few subs in the direct Brattleboro area that are large enough to participate in a central fire station size project. For instance, the electrical alone is over $1 million, if you can imagine that. So we do have a list of subcontractors that we would recommend. There are many local subs that we are recommending for the project. But the results of the competitive bidding did come back. We sorted through all of those. We compared and value analyzed those subcontract results, and then we began to analyze any potential of saving cost in the actual putting together of the project. In other words, time is money. When we initially started, we thought the project would take longer than we're now suggesting, i.e. we were able to take some money out. We spent a lot of time preparing the GMP, we as a DEW and myself, with the help of Ray and John, making sure that we had all the answers. In other words, while we have enough safety in the project to be sure that the project will be completed, and we hope under the GMP, we also made sure to build in enough cost in that GMP so that we didn't have to continually come back to you and say, we found an $11,000 soil issue, for instance, and we need to come back and get your approval. So in the GMP is not only the competitive pricing, but also some elements or factors within the GMP to essentially provide you with assurances that we can complete that project within that GMP amount, including, for instance, asbestos abatement, which typically is an owner cost. But in this particular circumstance, we put it into the GMP so that I didn't have to come back to you in 3 weeks and say, oh, by the way, I need $23,000 for asbestos abatement, et cetera. The elements of the project itself, the building is masonry with a steel. The new addition is a steel frame masonry building. It's quite attractive, if I may say so. I think you've seen pictures of that. The renovations are complete throughout the existing building. It includes new propane tank, new heating system, ventilation system, complete electrical system, the transfer switch for the generator, everything that we could possibly think of, except for, of course, the generator.
Thank you.
I tried to summarize that as best as I could.
That's exactly what I was hoping
Oh,
for.
lots of windows, lots of glass, lots of windows.
glass.
Yep.
Steve, one more thing.
You bet.
Because it kind of fits in with what you're saying about the hiring subs. I don't know if you remember, I think it was, 3 years ago when we were having conversations like this before.
Yeah.
And we had talked about trying to, you had said you could facilitate a process of helping local contractors find
Yep.
Brattleboro residents if they needed to hire new employees for
Yes.
the project.
Yep.
Not that they had to hire local people and fire their own.
Sure.
If they expanded, needed new people, are you still able to do that?
We've been open to that. Nobody has actually approached us since that time to have us to ask for direct involvement in that, but we still remain open for that
Could
opportunity.
you make that clear to the, when you do
Oh, sure.
choose the subs? That
Absolutely.
was something
Yep.
the select board had said they would prefer?
Yes,
Yeah, great, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we have the proposal what's it phrased, to approve the guaranteed maximum price for Central Fire Station construction and renovation. Is there any further discussion about that from anybody on the board? Is there anybody in attendance who's got any questions about that or comments? I move to approve the guaranteed maximum price of $5,120,170,000 for renovation and new construction at the Central Fire Station in accordance with the guaranteed maximum price document dated October 12, 2016 from DEW Construction Corp. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0.
Thank you.
You've purchased yourself a new
$5
fire
million.
station.
You better be
5
smiling,
years.
buddy.
And now the next item is Peter's going to introduce the architects to talk about the police station.
Ray Giolito is here to present to you the construction plans for the police station. Just as with the last item, these plans were reviewed and approved at the Police Fire Facilities Building Committee meeting this past week on October 12th. We're recommending that you approve them tonight so that the competitive bidding process can begin for the subcontracted work at this location. Right?
Good evening.
Hi, Ray.
Again, I will apologize for my side back view. I put my profile.
Oh, it's nice.
I would like to introduce one of my partners, John Scheib, who's been working with us behind the scenes. Now he is here to meet all of these wonderful people in Brattleboro that I have bragged about for 4 years, John. 4 years, John.
Stop.
What we have here and what you've got in your packet are the 90% drawings. They're now 100%. And should you approve this tonight, the bidders will be notified tomorrow morning, and drawings will get printed, and this will go out to bid. So I'll take you through it very quickly, and please feel free to stop me as I go through each major section, site, architectural, structural, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Hello. There we go. This is a copy of the survey, which is essentially what is currently existing on the site. Site demolition plan showing paving. One of the things that has been decided is the parking lot on the north, because of all of its drainage problems and the condition, and to comply with the land use regulations, that parking lot will be removed, and a new parking lot has been designed, as you can see on this drawing. 45 parking spaces, and so we have all new parking here. There's new pavement in front of the building. This is the impound lot, parking for cruiser vehicles, entrance to the Sally Port, some other site asphalt areas for some of the other vehicles that need to be stored, staff parking, visitor parking. We have a new sidewalk along Black Mountain Road extending from the property on the east to a point where it ends and then would eventually go to a sidewalk, I believe, across the street is what's happening, but I don't remember from last night's presentation. My apologies to the DRB. We will be striping a walkway for pedestrians along the west side of the driveway with a crosswalk. Anything beyond this point here, there will be 2 signs that say police vehicles only. The new generator and radio tower will be on the south side here. The walkway will remain to the main entrance. The walkway continues to the tenant space for the Brattleboro Reformer, and then comes along the south to provide means of egress. The drive, the gravel drive that goes to the south on the eastern edge of the property will be refurbished so that it provides an additional way for police vehicles to exit from the site. This is a more close-up. This is site grading and drainage. We will be providing some underground storage for stormwater. When that gets filled, there'll be some additional catch basins and an underground pipe leading to the west side of the site to flow into a detention basin that already exists on the site with an outflow that already exists. We are reducing the impervious surface significantly by redoing the parking lot here. A significant amount of asphalt has been reduced and the parking lot has gotten narrower.
Ray, can I just confirm?
Certainly.
The plans to do work on that parking lot, that was not part of the drawings like 6 weeks ago?
Correct.
8 weeks ago?
Correct.
And so we've actually been able, within the cost of the original project, to bring the parking lot into compliance with the new zoning ordinance. Is that fair to say?
That is the goal, Dave, because the original project had an addition out here for the Sally Port, and we've been able to incorporate that inside the building. So the hope is that will be a reasonable swap of dollars.
So that actually now allows for on-site treatment of that runoff from the parking lot?
Correct.
Whereas we would have had to achieve that later?
Correct. The Development Review Board was pleased with this, and now we comply with all of the land use regulations. We'll also be replacing site lighting out here, and it, from a security perspective and also to comply with regulations. And this drawing shows landscaping, so we'll be able to shade 50% of the paved area according to current land use regulations. There's landscaping at the main entrance, landscaping along Black Mountain Road. So we're in full compliance with land use regulations with this project now. Some details for various parts and pieces of the project. This is our building code plan. It was updated a little bit after this. All of the different wall types that are within the building, a demolition plan. We'll be removing some slabs to get to plumbing. There's a wood framed mezzanine in the building that will come out, the various holes that we need to do around the building for new windows and doors. The construction plan, I can represent that nothing has changed since you saw the more presentation type plan. I will say, Kate, there is a automatic opener on the two entrance doors, because I believe you brought that up last time. Somebody here brought that up.
But I also understand that we can actually do the push button.
We are.
That's what they've incorporated.
Oh, so it's not that buzzer thing.
No, it is a push button.
Okay.
So that the door will open with a push button on both on the exterior door and the interior door. Where it will be changed or when it will be deactivated is when the building is shut down and everybody has to ring the bell.
Can we put a nameplate on it dedicated to Kate O'Connor?
Whatever your pleasure is, John. We can,
Put my face on it. So
I would object to that, Kate.
That was a good catch. That was a good.
Yes. We did do a slight change in the cell block area, but that was just to meet some code requirements. Everything else is essentially the same. We have a new electrical room here, and this is the start of the tenant space. You'll see probably more on the furniture plan. Well, this is the ceiling plan, but on the furniture plan, we did receive a layout from the Brattleboro Reformer, and we've incorporated that into this just, again, primarily for code review purposes so that the code reviewers up in Springfield know that there will be some tenant space in here. Roof plan, elevations are as you had seen them the last time with the shoulder patch sign. The Brattleboro Reformer sign will be moved down. This would be the new tenant door or entrance to the tenant space. Some sections, some enlarged plans of locker rooms and cell block area, ceiling details, interior elevations, finish schedule, door schedule. Accompanying this, of course, is I think about a 725-page specification book that, of course, tells the contractor all of the products that are to be incorporated in the project. Structural drawings, we have all of the existing structure on this drawing, and we're showing some upgrades for some bracing and a few other items that need to be done. Nothing major, just to give the building a little bit more stiffness to comply with the code for an essential facility. We will be having some openings in the roof for new mechanical equipment, some concrete details and ceiling details for structure. This is the start of the plumbing drawing. So this drawing is all of the, essentially the underground sanitary plumbing and the waste, the vents going up through the roof for all of the various plumbing fixtures. This is the plumbing supply on the floor. This is mechanical schedules showing. Again, this was updated a little bit, but the rooftop equipment, exhaust fans, all of those various things that need to happen. This is the ductwork plan. Throughout the building, we'll have 2 new rooftop units and air distribution throughout with some exhaust, specialized exhaust, for example, in evidence and the cell block area, a few other locations like that. Electrical, this is a lighting plan, power plan, communications plan. This shows, this works along with an architectural plan that shows locations of electronic locks, security cameras, intercom stations, and that has about a 15, 16-page specification that goes with it. Fire alarm locations, and the site plan, as I mentioned before, showing new power going out to the site for some site lighting and building lighting. And I believe that's the last, yes, that's the last drawing.
Anybody on the board have any questions about the design, which is now 100% complete for the new police station?
Ray, did you say that the that access road was going to be improved so that it can be used?
Yeah, John, it's going to get cleaned up and another layer of gravel, and then it'll be rolled in. So it won't be paved, but
Right.
it'll be appropriate. It'll be enough so that cruisers can use it in an emergency.
So we're clear to go back through all of that?
Yeah,
To go past the motel?
Right.
it'll be a driveway. The right-of-way exists.
Okay.
There, right-of-way or easement, I'm not sure which it is, but the right to use it exists. The intent is not to create it as
Right.
public pass-through to
Right.
Black Mountain Road, but rather just as a secondary way
Okay.
of leaving the property for the police cruisers.
Okay.
It's not gonna be paved.
That's correct.
Gravel.
Like a sure pack or something? Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody on the board? Is there anybody in attendance who's got any questions or comments about the designs for the new police station?
Kate, you should bring up, you still concerned about the hallway?
I am concerned about the hallway, but I got my buzzer, so I'll.
John, do you know about the hallway?
I don't know about the
Well, Kate was worried that people would be in their jogging shorts going from one gym to the other, and they would be right across from the main offices. So I'm just trying to help Kate out here.
No, it's still a concern, but
Yeah.
I'm letting it go.
All right, well, you got your buzzers.
Okay then. Michael?
Michael Bosworth, this is, I know it's too late for thinking about this as part of the project at all, or whether there's money for it, but has it been determined whether the roof would be strong enough to hold a solar array in the future? Were that contemplated or not? And sort of the same question for the parking lot. Is that a possibility for the future?
I don't know what analysis has been done on the roof of the main building. I don't believe we've analyzed it for that particular purpose. There has been explicitly discussion of a potential carport structure that would go over where the police vehicles are going to park in the secured area of the lot. And the possibility, if that's another one of those items that we'll be deciding months from now when we see what kind of contingency we have left at the end of the job. If we do decide to proceed with that, it's been suggested that the structure for that carport be constructed. The original idea for it was to keep the vehicles out of the elements, but it could serve the additional purpose of being built strong enough that it could support a solar array on the roof of the carport.
Other questions or comments?
Ray, are there any plans on doing anything with the roof at this point, or is it just we're going to go with what we have there, or are we trying to improve it at all? Or
Correct. The roof on the addition, which was done in about 1999, which is about in this location, is in very good shape. It's single ply. The original roof has been coated, I think as of a couple of years ago, I think we got from the building manager. It's got an aluminum coating on it. Appears to be in good shape. So the only thing that we'll be doing would be cutting whatever penetrations we need for mechanical and fans and flashing it into the existing roof. But no evidence of leaks at this point, and it looks like it's in reasonably good shape.
Any other questions from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Looks like we're ready for a motion.
To approve the construction plans for the police station and to authorize Dew Construction Corporation to commence competitive bidding for subcontracted services.
We have a motion to approve the construction plans and to authorize commencement of bidding for subcontracted services. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Congratulations, you've approved design for the police station. Excellent. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is under new business, appointment of a new town clerk. Mr. Elwell, if you talk with us a little bit about the process that we went through and introduce the person who we're going to be voting to appoint.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
So we had a very strong field of candidates for the town clerk position. As you know, we established both a selection committee and an advisory committee. So the selection committee, which was comprised of Patrick Moreland, and Dan Anderson, Bob Fisher, and myself, we conducted the review of the resumes as well as a first round of interviews with 8 candidates. And then there was we did a second round of interviews, and during that second round, there was an advisory committee that included Chairman Gartenstein from the Select Board with Star Electronica, the Brooks Memorial Library Director, Jane Fletcher and Amanda Sack, who are employees within the town clerk's office, and Steve Phillips and Veronica Wheelock representing the community. So that group conducted interviews with the 2 individuals that the selection committee did second interviews with. At the end of that process, we conferred, we received the advice of the advisory committee, input to the selection committee's recommendation to you, and the combined between the 6 members of the advisory committee and the 4 members of the selection committee, our combined outcome from review of those 2 finalists was 9-1, and I say that because I think it's important to reinforce that it was a strong consensus, nearly unanimous decision. I also think it's worth noting that based on what the one person said about the person that we're about to introduce in a moment, and how others of us felt about the other finalists, we were really in the fortunate position where we had 2 outstanding people who were the finalists from a process that had, like I said, included a very strong field. We were pleased with the opportunity that we had to interview 8 people in the course of the entire review process. So this is an outcome that we're very happy with, but it's based on a process where sometimes you end up happy with the process, but the field itself wasn't that strong, and so you kind of wonder what it might have been like if you had seen stronger competition. This is actually a situation where we're very happy with the outcome, and it resulted from a very competitive process. And I think that's really bodes well for the town and going forward with the town clerk's office. So at this point, I guess it would be appropriate for me to introduce Hillary Francis to everyone. I want to say a word about Hillary, who is the person that we're recommending for you to appoint. One last procedural thing, the town clerk's position is a little different than the other staff positions. So normally with a town department head, I would be making the appointment and introducing the person to you, and that would be that. In the case of both the town clerk and the town treasurer, finance director position, the appointment is actually once and for all made by town meeting, but annually you as the select board identify the person that you're appointing or recommending to town meeting, and then there's a ratification vote that's on the warning. We conferred at the early part of this recruitment process with Bob Fisher about that aspect of this and whether or not we'd have to have a special representative town meeting at this point. And he said no, that it was appropriate given the legal structure behind that arrangement, that the recommendation would come out of the selection committee to you. You would make an initial appointment that you hopefully will do here in the next few minutes, and that would carry through until the ratification occurs at next March, the representative town meeting next March. Hillary comes to us most recently from service in the executive offices at CNS. over at their headquarters in Keene. She worked previously here in Brattleboro for CNS, as well as the time she sat in Keene. And in total, she's got 16 years of professional experience in a few different settings. And that is in addition to her educational background, which is a bachelor's degree from George Washington University and a master's degree from Antioch University. So, Hillary Francis.
Hillary, you still have time, okay, after watching this, okay?
And I'll also note that in an executive session 2 weeks ago, we had the opportunity to meet and speak with Hillary as well. That was properly handled in executive session, but the final appointment is made here in public session. So I move to appoint Hillary Francis as town clerk with employment to commence on November 29, 2016. Full duties as town clerk to commence on December 30, 2016, and town meeting ratification to be considered at the representative town meeting on March 25, 2017. Is there any further discussion from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance?
Welcome.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Congratulations.
And one quick footnote, I'd like to add that in addition to starting officially and full-time on November 29th, Hillary's actually going to be assisting with the presidential election on the 7th and 8th, the preparations on the 7th and the actual election on the 8th, so you might see her at the polls.
Well, we have to wish her congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't know, Hillary. You sure you're up for this?
I don't know. Can I still run?
You can run, but you can't hide.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really, really excited to serve the town of Brattleboro, the Brattleboro community as the new town clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
And thanks for sitting through the whole beginning of the meeting. It took quite some time, huh? Yep.
You're welcome to come and watch them all. Typically, if you stay home and watch until we're getting close to your agenda item, then you.
And you really should stay to the end.
John,
No, you
come on, man.
Assuming there is
All
an
right.
end.
Next matter on tonight's agenda is reappointment of the town zoning administrator, Brian Bannon, as deputy health officer. Peter?
You see these from time to time where the term of appointment comes to an end and the state sends us the form and the reminder that we need to renew someone's service in either the health officer or the deputy health officer position. It's Brian Bannon's turn this time. He does an excellent job. He actually did some additional service for us during that transition when Pete Lynch was leaving town employment. Brian handled some health officer issues at that time. Willing to continue serving, well qualified to continue serving. We'd ask that you approve the motion that's before you tonight to recommend. The actual formality of this is the board recommends to the State Department of Health the reappointment of the individual, and then the State Department of Health actually reappoints.
Patrick, don't let Eli go. He's going to be on in like 10 seconds.
I didn't chase him away.
No.
But I'll go grab him.
No, don't let it. Oh, there he is. All right. Is there any discussion about Brian Bannon being recommended as the
Was he told he had to do?
deputy health officer? We're ready for motion, please.
I recommend to the Vermont Department of Health the reappointment of Brian Bannon as deputy health officer.
We have a motion to recommend Brian Bannon as deputy health officer. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Oh, I think the financial report is next. Sorry, Eli. I sent Patrick to track you down, but John, financial report,
All right,
please.
David.
Hold on, John, I gotta get ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. So you have the September financial report in your packet, and as of the end of September, we were 25% of the way through the fiscal year. General fund expenditures stood at 24.6%. And then after making the adjustments for the various prorations that we do, that would bring the expenditures down to 21.6%. So doing very well compared to where we would expect to be. Utilities fund was at 23.2%. Parking was at 21.5%. So again, both funds are doing well compared to where we would expect to be at this point in the budget year. Solid waste had revenues that were 21.1% of its budget and expenses that were 18.1% of its budget. And again, as I say, every time we talk about this, it's a September report for solid waste, but it doesn't include the refuse bag revenue or the curbside collection costs or tipping fees for September. It's only through August. And those will be recorded this week in October. The loan report shows that we had $3,305,724 in outstanding loans. Two of the loan payments were overdue, and 2 were in default and fully reserved. And in fact, I think one of those has been written off since then. The program income report indicates that we had $818,676 in available funds for additional loans and grants. And then finally, the grant report gives you some detailed information on 38 active grants and 5 grants that are currently in the application process. So I can answer any specific questions that you may have regarding any of the financial reports that we just discussed, and if you have any.
Anybody on the board have any questions about any of the financial reports that have just been presented?
John, can you talk about the 2 late payments a little bit for me?
Yeah, the 2 that are late, let's go take a look at those. The first one is Jumi, which was a disaster relief loan, and they're behind 9 months. They got behind a fairly long time ago, and they've been making payments, but they're not catching up. So they are making payments. They got behind at one point in time, and but as you can see, they have been, this year so far, they've made principal payments of $586. So even though they're not current, they are making payments. So, okay. I don't think we're in too tough a shape there. Daniel is the second one under a rental housing agreement. And I know Kim was in contact with Daniel. And again, Kim, is he making payments now, or? She, yes.
Yeah, again, she got behind by a few months, but since then has been regularly making payments a little bit over and above what her standard payment is, so catching up little by little.
So those are the 2 that are late.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from anybody on the board? Or anybody who's in attendance about the financial report? Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Looks like the next item on the agenda is the Small Business Assistance Program loans for Abbott Road property and the O'Brien Drive property. Peter, do you want to do that, or Kim do it?
Sure. Kim can address the details. I'll just tell you in summary that staff and the Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee are recommending approval for 2 loans that together total the $70,000 that is the maximum available under the program. To be awarded to make improvements to 2 different properties that are owned by Eli Gould, and the details of that are set forth in the memorandum from Kim to you dated October 7th. If you have questions, Eli and Kim are both here and can answer them.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening up there, Eli.
Sure.
Please.
At the mic?
Thank you. Yeah. Just for the TV, not for the mic amplification.
Yeah, so we have come in to ask for some help with our 2 business properties in town, one of which we've had since we bought it as a literally 0 value barn in 2002 or 3, and slowly built up a timber framing shop, cottage industry, and have basically run out of collateral on that property a long time ago. It's not something we can borrow against a whole lot, so every year we chip away at trying to improve that a little more. Last year we did on-site septic and well, and got to structural completion. We have a house lot nearby, and definitely want that to be a beautiful part of this neighborhood. Some of our neighbors have also expressed the same. So this will allow us to complete the siding and the roof on that, and maintain essentially a small rural cottage industry that's never had a noise complaint or anything else like that. But as we have grown and won some of the first round of the Windham County Economic Development Job Creation Loan Funding, we decided to purchase another industrial building in town with 3-phase power and truck traffic access and sprinklers and a small office and showroom space. That was the old Nissan building off of Old Ferry Road on O'Brien Drive. We were fortunate to be that some of the first winners of a newly designed program. It did give us access to a subordinate debt package. We took on further commercial debt and put in our own equity and jumped into a building that had been winterized and basically shut down for years. It was part of the Hostess Twinkies distribution network, and was subject to that bankruptcy sale, and then had sat since then. So we've put a lot into the building. It's still not quite ready to be open. We've taken on a lot of debt through the different programs that are all debt related. So this is actually really helpful because there's no more property value collateral wise to borrow for the final steps. And what we're doing on the property in O'Brien Drive is really the last steps of an ADA bathroom and a visitable showroom space out in front. Really just core building functions. We've taken care of a lot of the heating system and electrical and plumbing, and have gotten all of our state permits for that. But to actually have a little bit extra money to finish this out is going to be key to us opening up our full operations there. And there wasn't a lot of other places we could go for this. So we do appreciate the industrial nature of this fund, and hope to be quickly paying down our book of business. And our job creation is basically out in front of what we've committed. We're almost a 10-person company with over $400,000 of payroll, and that's all local heads of families with kind of above average salary for what they're doing. And we've added a bunch of pre-construction and project management services to that. So this lets us not have to rent a separate office space anywhere, but have everything under one roof.
So what's the business model going to be going forward? I mean, you talked about having a little bit of a showroom space, and you've talked about your employees.
Yeah, well,
tell us what you're going to be doing.
Well, we've always been a timber frame company, and then along the way have started to build some really high performance buildings, or I think green building is a word that gets overused, but we have some of the most high performance buildings out there that we've done for some pretty special clients. And when we finish those, some of the manufacturers and window and mechanical system and other manufacturers who were part of those projects kind of turned to us and said, well, what are you going to do next? And we did think it would be great to have the chance to do some things that weren't just payroll based, to have some of the indirect sales, and to be able to be in a specifying position on these would definitely add to our manufacturing. But if you want to do that, you really need a place to show what you're doing there. But by and large, we're also, we've had to rent industrial space like Riverside, as we have to take responsibility for the whole envelope. You end up building just bigger and bigger stuff, and we didn't feel like, so this is a building that's set up for truck traffic. There's doors all over it, tractor trailer bays out of the back. Essentially the Twinkies model had product coming in with tractor trailers and out to vans, and we're setting this up to run backwards. Like the small wings shops will be building our stairs and our timber frames and our small subcomponents, and coming into the middle of this cross-dock facility and out onto the tractor trailer from there. So we're also, in taking the leap for this, there are some other smaller producers who, like us, could use a place with industrial zoning and 3-phase power. So we think we're going to be probably teaming up with some other cabinet and woodworkers there. So
That's a great model. That sounds great. Anybody have any questions or comments? I guess we're ready for motions, unless there's somebody who's in attendance who's got something they want to add. Kim, is there anything you want to add? Meets all requirements?
Yes.
Fully vetted?
Fully vetted.
Excellent. We're ready for motions, I guess.
To approve a loan of $25,000 for improvements to 628 Abbott Road at an interest rate of 3% and in accordance with other specific terms recommended by the Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee as set forth in the memorandum dated October 7th, 2016 from Grants Manager Kim Ellison.
You want to do the second one too?
Sure. To approve a loan of $25,000 for improvements to 21 O'Brien Drive at an interest rate of 3% and in accordance with other specific terms recommended by the Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee as set forth in the memorandum dated October 7th, 2016 from Grants Manager Kim Ellison. Is there another
It's
meeting
$45,000 for O'Brien Drive, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Right, so will you take a friendly amendment that the O'Brien Drive loan is $45,000 rather than $25,000?
Oh, yes, I will.
All right, so we have a motion to approve $25,000 loan for improvements at 628 Abbott Road and a $45,000 loan for improvements at 21 O'Brien Drive with the terms and conditions set forth in the motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please.
Well,
Kim?
I just wanted to make the comment that, at both of those locations, particularly at 21 O'Brien Drive, some of the improvements that he'll be making as part of the condition of this loan is zoning stuff that was left over from the previous owner. So there's a few, zoning issues that are gonna be all wrapped up in getting this taken care of as well, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Well, that sheds a whole nother light on it then.
All right, all those in favor of the loans for $25,000 at 628 Abbott Road, $45,000 at 21 O'Brien Drive with the terms and conditions as set out, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Congratulations, good luck.
Go, Eli.
thank you.
Want to hire me?
Next matter on the agenda is a brief report about solid waste.
Yes.
So I'll say that I requested that this matter be on the agenda. We transitioned as of July 1 or thereabouts to trash collection every other week. So now we have compost and recycling collection every week and garbage collection every other week. And we wanted to know how the community was reacting to that, including whether there had been further reductions in garbage being thrown away and further increases in recycling and compost. So we're asking for a report about that, please. Peter and/or Patrick.
The answer to both questions is yes. There's a memorandum dated October 13th that's in your notebooks from Patrick via me to you. It carries the really good news that people in town have really responded, and while we recognize that this transition has a level of inconvenience for everyone and a more substantial inconvenience for certain households, the transition has accomplished the goal that we set out for of reducing the overall cost to everyone in the community who pays into the system, and diverting more of the garbage waste stream out of that part of the waste stream and into the recycled and compost. I think it's especially noteworthy how much is going into compost, especially since there's ups and downs in the recycling market and some challenges out in that part of the this whole system these days, where the compost is just purely positive. It's a product that's then reusable and beneficial in area agricultural services. I'm sorry?
We sell it from the waste district.
Exactly, right. And the solid waste district sells it and makes some money off of it. And it's the best thing for the planet. And so what the statistics actually show for the 2 years, the first year being the transition to pay as you throw that diverted some of that garbage into the other waste streams, and then some additional benefit because of the additional transition this year to every other week. And in order that people don't have to store as much garbage, there's an incentive to continue to move waste into those other parts of the stream. The total impact for the 2 years transition, this is using direct comparisons of the total July, August, and September data, the 3 months of data for each of the 3 fiscal years. The total tonnage of garbage in our curbside program has been reduced by 60%. That's 60%. The commingled container recycling is increased by 30%.
So commingled means glass and plastic?
Correct. And
If I could briefly point out, which has really very little value because of the cost of the drop in the commodities prices. That's really a loss, having that increase. But there's no alternative to increasing it. We have to, we're getting rid of it in a better way.
And that's right, as compared to also paying tipping fees. I mean, there is a financial factor there, even though there's, it's not fully achieving the goal of the
it's
environmental program. Right. The paper recycling, on the other hand, is achieving its goal. That's an 8% improvement over the 3-year period. And compost is the real winning hand here. Most of what has been diverted out of the garbage waste stream is going into the compost waste stream. We've got a lot more participation across the whole community, and our tonnage has increased by 160%.
And if anyone's listening and they're not recycling their cardboard, please send us your cardboard.
And to all the neighbors on my street who don't compost, we encourage you to compost.
Composting is incredible.
It is.
Just ask the mice around my house.
Oh, it's incredible.
All right. Any questions about the garbage report?
Good garbage report.
All right, so we've got 2 more matters on the agenda tonight. The first one is the annual health insurance program renewal and modification of the health reimbursement arrangement. Peter?
Thank you. I'm going to refer you to the drawing that is the second page of the 2 pages in material for this item. It's in a format you'll remember from last year.
It's very sophisticated, Peter.
It's not my finest moment.
Hillary, would you like a copy?
Not my finest moment as a municipal management professional, but it works. It creates the visual. And so we did it again this year because it is especially powerful when we look at what's at stake this year. So and I apologize to the people at home who won't follow along as well, but for your decision making, I want to refer to what we're looking at. The old versus new columns, the left-hand 2 columns, show the decision that you made last year upon our recommendation to actually create an HRA layer, a health reimbursement arrangement, where the town actually self-insures a portion of the health insurance in order to bring down the premium cost for the insurance coverage that's provided by Blue Cross Blue Shield. The other 2 well-established components of our program stayed the same. The HSA benefit that's provided to employees remained the same, and the amount of cost that's borne by the employees' households remained the same. The only change was to creating that HRA layer, and by doing that, we saved, we estimate that the annualized savings, we only did it for a portion of this past year, but the annualized savings will be approximately $85,000 a year. The reason for that is that only a portion of the employees actually penetrate the HRA layer. Many employees don't even actually touch that at all. And for those who get there, only a subset of those go all the way through it and spend every dollar that's available there. So there is a savings from what would otherwise be the full cost of the HRA. And there's also a savings because of the HRA layer, there's a savings in the cost that we pay to Blue Cross for the coverage that's above and beyond that. What we looked at in preparing for the renewal was would there be additional savings? Would it be worthwhile for us to push out that same concept a little bit further? We want to be careful there because that is a self-insured layer. If we just got greedy and excited about the opportunity that this presents to us, we could go to many thousands of dollars higher. Right now, we're carrying $1,000 of HRA coverage for single coverage employees and $2,000 of HRA coverage for family coverage employees. That means that our total potential liability for each of those two types of employees is those figures that I quoted. For the reasons I stated, our actual per capita cost is substantially lower than that, more in the order of about 50% of that cost. By increasing the amount of the HRA, we further bring down premiums, but we take on additional risk. And so we think that it's appropriate to do this to capture some additional savings, but we think that particularly until the town has had more experience with the tool, we ought to do this a little bit at a time. We ought to not get risky with this, because if we had a very bad year where most employees were getting into the HRA layer and most of them were using all of it, we could potentially overspend our health insurance budget in that particular year. Still, the long-term benefit of doing this will always be substantial savings. But we want to be careful not to put ourselves in a position where we've taken too much risk and end up short. So what we're proposing is an increase in health reimbursement arrangement HRA exposure of $500 per single coverage employee and $1,000 per family coverage employee. The HSA portion would remain the same. The family exposure out-of-pocket costs would remain the same. We take the same model. If you look in those two right-hand columns of the chart, it's the same model that we've already switched to, but take on a little bit more risk with the HRA. And by doing that, we expect to be able to increase the annual savings from the $85,000 under the current model to $122,000 of annual savings under the proposed.
So that's not an additional 122, it's an additional about 37.
That's correct. Exactly right.
Peter, what did you say that the single was for the proposed modification?
So it would be an increase of $500. It'd be a total of $1,500 in that layer.
I missed how you phrased it.
Right. Now, we looked at scenarios that would be substantially greater increase in both family and single coverage, and there is additional savings to be captured there, but it diminishes as you go further out. The magnitude of each increment diminishes, and it means taking on a substantially greater risk. And so we thought this would be the sweet spot for this year.
So I just want to make sure I understand this, because I want to make sure I understand it.
Sure.
So with the proposed modification, the total amount that will be paid before the insurance premium kicks in by the employee, the HSA, and the HRA comes to $9,000 of the entire cost of the insurance. Is that how that works?
I understand how you get to that. It actually, it's two different types of employees. So for an employee who has single coverage, health insurance coverage just for themselves, that'll be $3,000.
Right, okay, so let me make it $6,000 then. I get it.
And it'll make it $6,000. That's correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
For a
right.
family.
Yeah, we'll go from where we currently are at $2,500 for single and $5,000 for family. We would go to $3,000 and $6,000.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? I guess we're ready for a motion, please.
To approve changes in the town's health insurance program as follows. 1, increase the deductible to $3,000 for single coverage and to $6,000 for family coverage. And 2, adjust the health reimbursement arrangement, HRA, to pay for claims in the space between $1,500 and $3,000 for single coverage and between $3,000 and $6,000 for family coverage. Both changes to be effective with the beginning of the new plan year on January 1, 2017.
We have a motion to revise the health insurance program by increasing the HRA. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? It carries 5-0. And the last item on the agenda is the Child Advocacy Center grant. Peter?
Yes, we recommend your approval of this grant application. It's what it represents is taking a role that we partially play already in the region in terms of providing expertise that we have within the Brattleboro Police Department to assist other departments in the investigation of various crimes involving child sexual assault and other child abuse cases. And there's a formal program for providing this kind of assistance that's operated with a state grant through the Child Advocacy Center, the Special Investigations Unit and Child Advocacy Center. And that has previously been provided, that service and this has been previously been provided by the Sheriff's Office, and so the grant went to the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff's Office has decided not to provide that service any longer, and the Brattleboro Police Department's been approached to formalize the informal role we've already played in providing some level of assistance to other municipalities to now become the actual contracted service provider for this. We can represent that it will have little to no impact on the work that is done by the individual who would be loaned. Can't say none, because this will step up the level of commitment that that person would have to this program. But because there's a substantial body of work that this person already does that relates to these kinds of cases, sometimes providing this kind of assistance to other municipalities, we do believe that the relationship can be structured in a way where town productivity will be maintained, but we will receive the benefit of the $60,000 grant, while also providing a very capable individual to assist in these particular types of investigations.
All right, so I'm going to provide a little bit of a disclosure, and then I'm going to speak to this a little bit. I am, in my day job, serious felonies prosecutor, and I work pretty much all of the child sex abuse cases that are prosecuted in Wyndham Criminal Division. And so the officers who do these investigations are completing their work product and then turning it over to my office and to me particularly for review and then for prosecution. So I'm totally in favor of this model here, because our dual goals in developing the Child Advocacy Center here in Wyndham County have been to get a child interview specialist, somebody who is specially trained to interview children following national protocols, including the National Children's Advocacy Center protocol for interviewing kids during investigations about sexual abuse and serious physical abuse, and also hopefully to have dedicated investigators doing the work. And so there has previously been grant money that's gone to the Sheriff's Department, but we haven't been able to fully achieve as of yet the model where we've got a fully dedicated officer who is full-time doing these investigations. And the officer who would be assigned for Brattleboro, if this grant is awarded, would be an excellent addition to that team, who would help to improve, I believe, the quality of these investigations throughout the county, and here in Brattleboro in particular, who's already doing the work. So I'm totally in favor of this. I think it'll improve the quality of these investigations for the county as a whole going forward. I wondered when I first joined Select Board if there was ever going to be a time when my day job as a prosecutor and my Select Board work would have a conflict. And it's not necessarily a conflict, but I'm not going to vote on this one, but I'm totally in favor.
Is this, do we have to apply again next year? Is this an annual grant?
Yes, the $60,000 would be recurring, and I believe we'd have to reapply in order to receive it. It's an annualized amount.
This is from the state to support this work.
Yeah, I think there's little doubt that if we apply, we'll receive it because of the circumstances that, between what I've described to you and what David's described to you, it's a well-known individual who's well qualified to perform this function, and that's how it would be set up. That's how the regional people want to set it up. That's how our police department feels comfortable with it being set up. So it's very likely if we apply for the grant, we're going to get it, and it's going to get established in the manner that we've described. And it's equally likely, I think, that unless we bump into some unexpected difficulty with it, that this will recur from year to year going forward.
And I guess certainly being on the school board and watching grants come through in the 90s where they would staff positions and then all of a sudden the funding would would dry
That
up, and
didn't
all of a
stop.
sudden,
Right.
the position was taken on by the local system. And my question here, although I do agree with David that would this be something that potentially down the road could be, become part of our annual budget?
Well, so I'll answer that one. For right now, the town of Brattleboro has a certain level, average annual level of reports of child sexual and physical abuse that are then investigated by an officer. And so we're already paying for the better part of a police officer to do that work through the annual budget.
No,
And so all this is gonna do is it's gonna fund his work through the grant, and then he will also be able to, or he will be working on cases for Vernon and Bellows Falls and providing assistance for other agencies as well when they need them. So if the grant money were to go away, his work would return to being funded through the Brattleboro budget, and he'd be doing just the Brattleboro cases again. So it's not creating a position.
No, but
that we
there's
then have to
a
fund.
good topic for conversation, because obviously your knowledge in saying this is a worthwhile position, we believe that it is. Long-term planning would say, okay, now here's an opportunity for collaborative work with other communities that is, that are utilized by having this position here, so their I can see this as other communities making a contribution into this to have access to somebody that we have on staff, versus saying, okay, we've lost that because the grant went away and now Brattleboro's funding that position. So part of that long-term planning, that evolving document you have, this would be a good place to.
Absolutely. That if the grant did go away at some time in the future, and if those other communities wanted us to continue to provide this kind of service, then certainly there should be some kind of a contractual relationship to provide that. And I think that would be important, not just from a fairness on the cost aspect of this, but also for liability, to protect the town when we're providing those kinds of services to another municipality.
Would this position add to our current staffing?
That's
of
not the
like
intent. The
29?
intent is to continue functioning just as we do
Right,
today.
right. But
Except that this individual will spend a portion of their day now, every day, at the Child Advocacy Center.
Right.
But though their workload here will be, similar to what it already is, and we don't intend to increase the headcount by one. We intend to actually just offset the expenses we've already been incurring with the $60,000 grant.
And we're still short of our full complement.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry?
We're still short of our full complement.
We are. So actually, the creation of an additional slot at this point would be hypothetical or academic, rather than a real impact for the community. I will say, we have a path towards getting to filling all of those slots based on the action that you took authorizing us to overfill, and based on the recruitment cycles that are upcoming. So the police department has a plan. It's likely to be a couple of more recruitment cycles before we actually hit the target.
Right.
And then hopefully the new wage structure
Right.
will help
Absolutely.
to
Retain them.
retain those officers once they're
Exactly.
trained.
Absolutely.
What I'll note also is that one of the hurdles that we have faced in trying to get dedicated investigators is that we have separate towns with separate budgets, and there's less centralization of budgets here than there are in other places. So for example, in some of the northern counties where there's much bigger municipalities, or where there are way smaller municipalities, and so services are all provided by state police, or for example in Chittenden, where they've got Chittenden and VSP that provide the services, they're able to assign officers by pooling resources. But here, each individual agency has been keeping its own funding, and so it's hard to get dedicated officer on staff, and this will be, I think, in a significant advance. Kate, we'll leave it to you to call this one.
Oh my God.
Thank you. I know you're already closed up and ready to go.
Oh, yeah,
that's why.
That's why you're doing it. Okay, I got it. I got it. I move to approve the police department's application for $60,000 Special Investigations Unit Child Advocacy Grant from the state of Vermont to offset the cost of assigning a Brattleboro Police Department investigator to the SIU to cover cases of child abuse and sexual assault throughout Wyndham County.
Very well done.
You get to call the vote.
Oh.
right.
That's what I'm
He's
saying.
abstaining.
Oh, I was one ahead of you. I was going to do this. So we have a motion on the floor to approve a $60,000 grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Anyone
abstain.
abstaining? Passes.
Thank you for doing that.
4-1.
Good job.
So, I think that's all the business to come in front of the board tonight. We're ready for motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. I want to thank everybody who's been watching us on TV, whether live or recorded. I want to thank members of the press, everybody who attended the meeting, our BCTV operators, and our ASL interpreters. James, we miss you. Good night.